a Thought Leaders podcast.
It's 2008. Obama has been elected president. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt welcome twins. Jay-Z and Beyoncé tie the knot. And YouTube wins a Peabody Award. Handed out yearly at the Waldorf Astoria in New York, the Peabodys honor excellence in journalism and media. And in 2008, this prestigious award was bestowed on the 3-year-old video streaming platform.
Whether your personal favorite is Dangerous Squirrel or a previously unknown singer from Scotland, today a Peabody goes to YouTube.
In describing why it was given the award, the Peabody program declared that YouTube was, quote, a digital speaker's corner that not only embodies but also promotes democracy. In the early days, YouTube offered a space where individuals could freely express themselves, connect with others globally, and bring niche communities into the spotlight. However, as YouTube evolved, so did its complexities. The rise of algorithms fundamentally shifted the viewing landscape, shaping the content consumption experience in a massive way, and also contributing to gender disparity on the platform. In this episode, we'll delve into the complex role of algorithms in shaping viewing habits on YouTube and see how algorithms have contributed to the gender gap in success on the platform. Hello, I'm Shoshana Eilon, the COO of Thought Leaders, a company connecting YouTubers and brands. And this is Who Killed the Female YouTube Star, an investigative podcast where we delve into the glaring gender divide on YouTube. In today's list of the world's top 50 YouTubers, there are only 3 women. This podcast asks why that is. YouTube's development echoes the changes we all saw as the internet at large began to take shape. Initially, the internet was a vast and open space where users could freely explore with fairly limited guidance, navigating through websites and content in a manner akin to wandering through a vast library. However, with the advent of search engines and social media platforms came the introduction of algorithms. These were designed to streamline and personalize the user experience, offering tailored content recommendations based on user behavior, preferences, and demographic information. While the algorithm was a tool for enhancing user experience, it was also a mechanism for controlling the flow of information. So very quickly, these algorithms became instrumental in deciding what videos were seen and popularized. The algorithm became king, and today it decides everything. But wait, let's take a step back. What exactly is the YouTube algorithm? And why do some people find it so incredibly problematic? I sat down with Ola Kowalewski, who's an entrepreneur and researcher who looks at how exponential technologies impact society, individuals, and businesses. I asked her to start by explaining what exactly an algorithm is.
An algorithm in itself is any set of defined steps programmed for some output. So a classic example is you could actually say making toast with butter has an algorithm, which is step 1, get some toast or get some bread. Step 2, cut the bread, put in the toaster, et cetera, et cetera. And so an algorithm inherently doesn't need to be computer-based. But when we're talking about artificial intelligence, then we are focusing on computer systems. And I think what's noteworthy is, the YouTube algorithm, or really any recommendation algorithm, would be a subset of AI called machine learning. And at the most basic level, you have this model or this algorithm, but it ingests a lot of data that basically changes it over time or improves it over time, ideally.
Now, the algorithm is a computer program. It's supposed to be neutral. Like, the recommendation is based on computerized data, so the decisions of the video YouTube might recommend for a viewer to watch next should be totally unbiased, right? Wrong. There is something called algorithm bias. Here's Ola again to describe it.
I think if there's one thing, listeners here remember, is that there's no way you can make an algorithm bias-free. An algorithm is inherently biased, but that's because humans are inherently biased. And this isn't something that you're taking away. I mean, we are biased because that's what allows us to survive in this world, right? It's to have a point of view. And our biases stem from everything from our environment, our culture, our genetic makeup. So I think when we think in terms of algorithmic bias in general, I think as a starting point, there's no such thing as having a bias-free algorithm. It's just actually being aware of what are the biases inherent in the design of the algorithm.
Do you remember a couple of years ago when the AI image generators first launched with tech like DALL-E and Midjourney? Soon after the initial excitement surrounding how cool it was to be able to generate images from a simple text prompt came the inevitable outcry. The images the AI was generating perpetuated certain stereotypes. When asked for an image of a CEO, the image generators produced pictures featuring white men in suits. Bloomberg even reported that a prompt asking for a CEO would result in the picture of a man 94% of the time. But, as Ola points out, algorithms are created by humans. In 2022, a British ad agency created a campaign to celebrate International Women's Day. The campaign was called Imagine and featured striking black and white posters which were plastered all over London. Each poster asked the viewer to imagine a different role or work situation. One instructed viewers to imagine a CEO and then challenged them in a smaller font. Is it a man? The leap that most casual onlookers would make when asked to perform this thought exercise isn't all that different from the data inputs that guide the AI image generators. And remember, today 90% of top CEOs are men. That means that the assumption that the AI algorithm is making, and the assumption that most people who saw the Imagine poster would have made as well, is basically correct. In today's world, that still is what most CEOs do in fact look like. Of course, that's a very commonly held bias that is based in the reality that we see around us. What about the biases that exist more strongly within particular groups of people? Ola is describing ideas that are based on researcher Safia Umoja-Noble, who wrote the book on this topic, called Algorithms of Oppression. In the book, Safia challenges the idea that search engines like Google offer an equal playing field for all forms of content. She addresses the relationship between search engines and discriminatory biases. Noble argues that search algorithms perpetuate societal problems because they reflect the negative biases that exist in society and are internalized by the people who create these algorithms. Here's Ola again.
Essentially, I would say there's the context of who are the designers. And this is often brought up, is that the designers themselves tend to be a very specific demographic of 20 to 30-year-old or 20 to 40-year-old men, very homogeneous. And so they inherently have biases, conscious and unconscious, of how they're designing it.
Ola referred to this as design bias, which means that the algorithm designers have certain leanings, and so they brought these unconscious prejudices to the algorithm, whether they meant to or not. However, she also explained that we cannot simply offload the blame onto the designers. The whole point of the algorithm is that it's continually influenced by new data based on user behavior. User clicks and preferences reinforce existing biases in the algorithm. We spoke to Professor Will Grant, a senior lecturer at the Australian National Centre for the Public Awareness of Science at ANU. He has conducted a number of studies on YouTube and gender, specifically in the STEM science world. Will agreed that YouTube's algorithm plays a role in the gender divide, but that it can be really hard to fully police an algorithm.
I don't want to feel sorry for these people. They're probably sitting on fairly cushy salaries and they're in key parts of some of these super powerful companies. But I would say that tending to these algorithms that make up the giant social media platforms is a really complex job. And it's not simply, and I don't want to malign computer scientists. Computer scientists are geniuses. This is great. It's not like to tend to the algorithm of YouTube or whatever it is not simply computer science. It is computer science plus sociology, plus psychology, plus politics, plus a lot of community. It's a weird form of gardening. It's a really tough, complicated job to think, how do we change our algorithm so that we are getting the best possible version of our community? They want the eyeballs, of course. They want people to sit on their site as long as possible, but they don't want to cause a genocide in Burma. They don't want to fuel the alt-right coming to power around the world. And that's not a simple task. Like who would have said 10 years ago, okay, computer scientists, you need to think about algorithms, but what you're going to do is get that finely tuned balance between engagement and no genocide in Burma.
We know from the female creators that we spoke to that they were very aware of the biases that certain viewers bring to their content. And Ola said something very similar in the context of the algorithm.
Every click we make is reinforcing the current bias that we have. So if we are, let's say, unconscious, I might say, I want to look at a product review, some tech product review. I might have a bias towards clicking a male because traditionally males are more into gadgets or something, right? So like we inherently have these biases that are just reinforcing the current algorithm. So from a agency and empowerment perspective, just that awareness of who are you clicking on, what are you doing, collectively actually has a huge impact. And I would say that is largely embedded in the culture we have. So culture takes a lot longer to shift than individual preferences, but it does start shifting as we update our own preferences and have these types of discussions.
Significantly, YouTube made a huge shift to their algorithm in 2011. The introduction of the recommendation algorithm started to suggest what videos people should watch next. Instead of solely focusing on content popularity, the algorithm began prioritizing videos with high click-through rates and extended watch times. In choosing to focus on these metrics, YouTube's algorithm had no way to distinguish between content that evokes positive emotions, leaving viewers with a smile on their face, and content that made them angry or upset. In fact, it tended to favor the latter. Why? Because viewers are more likely to engage with and seek out additional information on topics that provoke strong emotions. So this means that content is recommended based on its ability to stimulate and engage, whether positively or negatively. YouTube also aimed to curb clickbait tactics by rewarding creators who could not only attract, but also retain viewers' attention. They wanted videos that people would watch for longer periods of time. So the emphasis shifted from simply luring viewers with enticing thumbnails to actually captivating them with content that encouraged more time spent on the platform and gave YouTube more opportunities to advertise to these viewers. There is a fascinating documentary which talks about how sensationalized content is driving the YouTube algorithm. It's called The YouTube Effect, directed by filmmaker Alex Winter. Fun fact, Winter played the slacker Bill in the 1989 film Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and subsequent sequels. In this more serious role, Winter interviewed Hani Farid, professor at the UC Berkeley Computer Science and School of Information.
These platforms are in the engagement business. At the end of the day, they're giving away their products for free. And the way they make money is by keeping you on the platform for as long as possible, extracting data from you, and delivering ads. Now, Facebook, it's very easy to see the recommendation algorithms. Your newsfeed is 100% curated for you to provide you with articles that will keep you on the platform for as long as possible. YouTube, it's a little bit less obvious. But if you look at the viewing patterns on YouTube, a full 70% of all YouTube videos that are watched today are recommended by YouTube through Watch Next. So the autoplay that is by default on, and then the recommended for you panel and the recommendations on the right-hand side. How's it choosing those? So of course, part of that algorithm is, this is something that is relevant to this. But some of it is that, look, we know people will click on this, and if you click on it, I get more data and I get more ads.
In an article for SYFY, Kaylee Donaldson argues that, quote, YouTube's algorithm is one of the worst things about the internet. She says,
if you've ever looked up something vaguely feminist or female-centered on YouTube, the chances are it didn't take very long for your recommendations tab to become chock full of videos of men telling you that feminism is bad. Women aren't the only ones affected by this problem. Violent rhetoric festers throughout YouTube, and the algorithm plays into that across all intersections of gender, race, sexuality, and so on. But there's something particularly insidious about the way YouTube's basic design has made the site hostile to half the world's population.
A 2022 study published by Australian academics Elise Thomas and Kata Ballant documents, quote, how YouTube's algorithms contribute to promoting misogynistic, anti-feminist, and other extremist content to Australian boys and young men. The academics created 10 experimental accounts. All of these seed accounts were recommended content which criticized feminist messaging and questioned gender authority. In all instances, these recommendations appeared mere hours after the accounts were created. Washington Post tech journalist Taylor Lorenz spoke to me about how the change in YouTube's algorithm in 2011 created a massive shift in what content was being prioritized on the platform and what ultimately became successful.
YouTube began to reward frequency of content, daily posting. You saw Casey Neistat really begin this daily vlogging trend, because vlogging daily and publishing daily was one of the fastest ways to grow, basically. And so you saw all these male content creators engaging in daily posting and prank that led to this rise of prank content, because it's very hard to turn around compelling content daily. You need something repeatable, low effort, easy kind of content. And so you saw just an explosion in prank content from 2015 to 2017, 2018. That was a completely male dominated space. There are almost no women prank content creators. And I did interview some of them for my book, and they talked about the struggles. One, women can't put themselves in the same sort of dangerous situations that men can. A lot of the pranks were inherently misogynistic. I'm thinking of Logan Paul, going to the beach, Venice Beach, and lassoing women and getting them to kiss him. There was a lot of kissing pranks, a lot of harassing women without consent pranks. It was very juvenile, misogynistic humor. And women like Elle Mills and other prank YouTubers spoke about this double standard, where when women tried to do pranks, there's these notions of women's humor, people not getting women's humor, people holding women to higher standards. Again, a lot about the image of women. Women couldn't do the same kind of body humor and gross kind of stunts. That was seen as unfeminine, and women prank YouTubers were seen as unfeminine. And so they received a huge amount of hate.
So this pretty much set up a system where certain content became prioritized. And most of the time, it becomes sensationalized content. Changing the algorithm caused a surge of gaming and prank content, which kept viewers on the platform for longer. This type of content was easy to produce, which meant these videos could be filmed, edited, and uploaded more frequently, which meant that this kind of content was prioritized, which meant these channels were rewarded with views, meaning higher ad revenues, meaning these video creators had more money to keep investing in their content and gradually rise through the ranks on the platform. With these various changes to the algorithm, one particular kind of content has come to reign supreme, giving rise to a whole new class of super successful creators. And one creator who rose to the top and continues to dominate the #1 spot on the charts is MrBeast. If we take a closer look at this creator, it might help us to understand how and why male creators have dominated the top place on the platform. I blame the Beast. MrBeast, whose real name is Jimmy Donaldson, is known for over-the-top challenges and stunts, often involving extravagant giveaways or acts of philanthropy. In one video, he paid for cataract surgery for 1,000 people, allowing these individuals who are suffering from blindness to see for the first time. There's a good chance you're already familiar with his content. After all, he is the most followed YouTuber in the world, with almost 300 million subscribers. He recently scored a $100 million deal with Amazon for a game show, and Time magazine did a massive cover story about him, calling him the most watched person in the world. In fact, MrBeast has achieved a similar kind of celebrity ubiquity as someone like Donald Trump or one of the Kardashians, where he is constantly making headlines. Whether it be opening his burger restaurant with record-breaking crowds in attendance, to launching his chocolate company, to declaring he's planning to run for president, there is a growing sense that barely a week goes by without Jimmy attracting serious media attention. There is an endless appetite from fans and creators trying to learn how he did it, how MrBeast became the first creator who is firmly on track to become a billionaire. And with all of that success came a lot of imitators. Last year, MrBeast sat down with fellow YouTubers Colin and Samir to talk about his ongoing success. They spoke to him about what they call the MrBeastification of YouTube and how his influence is being felt in every corner of the platform.
Something I want to talk to you about is the term beastification.
Yeah.
Because
we had emerged on our show.
I think so. Yeah, maybe from Ryan Trahan. Because we had people come on the show and talk about the beastification of YouTube.
Yeah.
Which meant that people on YouTube are following in your footsteps and trying to copy you.
Yeah.
And so the thumbnails look the same. A lot of the concepts look the same.
I know.
And so when you open up YouTube for a period of time, it just felt like, wow, why does every thumbnail look the same with just a different person's face?
Yeah.
Why do some of these concepts look the same? The subtitles feel the same.
There's like inspiration and then there's just stealing. And so many people just steal what I do. Like so many people literally just put their face on my face.
Right.
Or just take my thumbnail. Or literally verbatim say what I say at the start of my videos or like all my things. I will literally come on here and tell you guys every little thing I know about getting views on YouTube. And I know thousands, tens of thousands of creators have watched those and literally, that's the reason why they're making $10,000+ a month because they're just like, oh, Jimmy just literally laid it out. I just followed it. So there's that positive, but then there's also the negative because so many creators have watched it. And instead of like taking inspiration from me, they're just like, oh, I'm just going to do exactly what he's doing. And like, it's pretty brutal.
MrBeast has come to define what success looks like on YouTube and the kind of content that we want to consume on the platform. And the problem with that content is it's all very male. Without undermining any of Donaldson's philanthropic efforts, it's also fair to say that he is responsible for establishing a paradigm that helps a certain in-group on the platform while excluding everyone else. And that in-group, like so many in-groups, is very male, fairly white, and overwhelmingly straight. MrBeast frequently works with a team of collaborators. This crew is mainly made up of Jimmy's close friends, and their relationships and teamwork are often featured in his videos. Beyond his core group, which includes 4 men and until recently 1 trans woman, we looked into the list of everyone that has appeared in MrBeast's content. And women make up only 17% of the people in his videos. MrBeast has set up a blueprint for success on YouTube that women are not able to follow. Many of MrBeast's videos are challenge or stunt-based, which, as Taylor points out, is a very male-dominated genre of content. It's hard to think of any examples of female creators who have found success with this kind of content, while there are countless male creators who have thrived on YouTube by replicating MrBeast's formula. Jimmy Donaldson often talks about how his success as MrBeast comes down to one main thing, one art form he perfected maybe better than any other creator on the platform. And that is obsessively studying the algorithm.
Most of my growth came actually after I graduated high school. Basically what I did was I somehow found these other 4 lunatics. 3 of us were college dropouts, 1 was a high school dropout. And 1, I don't know, he just quit his job. We were all super small YouTubers. And we basically talked every day for 1,000 days in a row and did nothing but just hyper study, what makes a good video, what makes a good thumbnail, what's good pacing, how to go viral. And we just call it daily masterminds. We would just get on Skype every morning. And some days, I'd get on Skype at 7 a.m. and I'd be in the call until 10 p.m. And then I'd go to bed, I'd wake up and I'd do it again. And, we'd do things just take 1,000 thumbnails and see if there's a correlation to the brightness of the thumbnail to how many views it got, or videos that get over 10 million views is how often do they cut the camera angles, or things like that.
Really? So you micro-analyzed
everything?
Really?
Yeah, for we were very religious about it, and so that's where most of my knowledge came from. Is I just surround myself with these lunatics, and just every day, we didn't do anything. We had no life.
But everybody had sort of a similar vision.
Yeah, exactly. So we all had 10, 20,000 subscribers when we met, and by the time we stopped talking, we all had millions of subscribers.
However, that kind of analysis is going both ways. While MrBeast might be learning from the algorithm is also learning from MrBeast. That means that millions of fans who watch MrBeast content will be offered recommendations for similar videos from similar creators, which broadly speaking means other challenge videos from other male YouTubers. Since large numbers of users are consistently watching and engaging with MrBeast videos by liking, commenting, and subscribing, the algorithm interprets this as a signal that this type of content is popular and recommends it more frequently to even more users. And so his success becomes a self-perpetuating cycle. And that brings us back to our original problem. The algorithm is not helping and potentially even harming the equality between male and female creators on the platform. And that is an algorithm that YouTube has designed and continues to maintain. Where do we go from here? So let's review and see if we can answer our central question. Who killed the female YouTube star? Over the course of this series, we've laid out a number of key culprits, each with its own faults and responsibilities when it comes to the current status of female creators on the platform. All of these factors have created the reality on YouTube today, where all of the top creators who are earning the most money are men. We've looked at how content monetization, online misogyny, and YouTube's own algorithm have contributed to the gender gap. And now we are left with the question, where do we go from here? How do we change the system and close the gender gap on YouTube? We asked all the creators we spoke to for their ideas on how to change the platform they love for the better. Here's Michelle, the artist creator behind the YouTube channel Mew Tripled.
I definitely think that helping creating like spaces that amplify more women creators. I noticed that during Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander month, they created like playlists that just support like people of those communities, or like even like every month there is a different sort of celebration for different communities. And I noticed that YouTube is starting to like set playlists or like promote like people of those demographics, which is great. I think like they can also do that for, you know, women or anyone without it having to be a holiday of any sort too.
Whitney, the DIY creator behind the channel Whiskey and Wit, talked about the need for skills sharing and community building as a potential strategy for helping female creators succeed on the platform.
Maybe creating different forums and helping, you know, women connect. I know that has been huge in my ability to sustain this and also to have success, is finding that community. So I think if they're able to help with that, that would be huge. That's probably the biggest thing, because even just to be able to talk to other creators, because what we do is still so new.
And Jessie Grossman, the founder of Women in Influencer Marketing, also stressed the importance of community and collaboration for helping women achieve greater success.
You know, one thing that people don't think about often enough, in my opinion, is partnership. When I think about like years ago, and probably still to this day, on YouTube in particular, when you saw a YouTuber like really grow and make a pretty significant jump in terms of like new followers or, you know, something like that, it was usually because they did a collab with another creator who was like maybe a little bit bigger than them. I have been talking about this with a few people lately, and it's that idea of partnership that, especially with overachieving women, like there's so much that you can achieve on your own, but just imagine if you got together with another overachieving woman and partnered and helped each other, and how much more you could achieve together. There are so many opportunities to lift each other up and to partner and to say, like, there's reciprocity here. Like, I'll help you, you help me. Like, let's not look at each other as competition. And I feel like you would probably see a lot more women as being on that list, that top earner list on YouTube, if women simply like partnered up and worked more together.
These female creators each offered a range of strategies for ways to close the gender gap on YouTube. I love the idea that creators can come together to lift each other up, fostering partnerships and collaborations, facilitating skills sharing, and amplifying female voices. However, over the course of this podcast, it's become pretty clear that YouTube has a more active responsibility in fixing some of the issues that its own platform has inadvertently perpetuated. YouTube can certainly do more to make their own platform more equitable and safer for women. In article after article, journalists and researchers have argued that YouTube should take action to counter negative content on their site and ensure that a more diverse range of creators receive more airtime on the platform. Some argue that the reason they don't do more to address this is because of advertising revenues. Ola even said something similar in our discussion when I asked her about how ads factor into the algorithm choices that YouTube has made.
I would say probably even more impactful bias in how the algorithm is designed is, the business model that the algorithm is designing for, right? And that is probably one of the hardest things to shift. Is inherently, if you are a company, you have a fiduciary duty to drive profits for your shareholders. So tweaking an algorithm has to inherently be seen as a good business decision.
Dave Lauer, the CEO of Irvin AI and an AI ethicist, is far more critical of the financial incentives driving YouTube's decisions.
They are obligated to maximize shareholder value. If they don't do that, they are exposed to liability and lawsuits. When that's your incentive and you don't have the liability for the content on your system, it leads to some very perverse incentives, such as building machine learning systems and algorithms that attempt to capture people's attention and addict them to more content and keep them on your site so that you can show them more advertising because that's how you make your money.
However, YouTube argues that their advertising model is actually a positive force that keeps the platform in check. Of course, they claim that the YouTube community's best interest is their top priority, and they have argued that harmful misinformation is bad for their business. That's what prevents them from promoting any kind of negative content that would deter advertisers from spending money on YouTube. Essentially, YouTube argues that the advertiser dollars are effective in holding the platform accountable. And it is true that there have been examples in YouTube's past where they did make changes when it ultimately affected their bottom line. I'm talking about the adpocalypse in 2017.
Adpocalypse 2.0. Everybody's pulling their ads again.
During this period, every YouTuber saw a decrease in revenue.
He is trying to get advertisers pulled from the platform, which doesn't actually change anything.
Brands are removing their ads off of YouTube once again.
Oh no, the adpocalypse.
The adpocalypse is where major advertisers started to boycott YouTube because it was discovered that thousands of ads of major corporations were appearing alongside inappropriate or extremist videos. In response, YouTube implemented changes to its ad policies and algorithms, impacting both inappropriate content and many legitimate content creators. This is an example of YouTube making a massive change when their back was against the wall and they saw their advertising revenues being negatively impacted. Here's what tech journalist Taylor Lorenz had to say about this.
One thing has to happen. They have to lose money. If there's no threat of losing money, they don't do anything because they're a business and they don't care about anything except making money. And they certainly don't care about their creators unless they can make money off of them. So that's the only thing.
So who has the ability to force YouTube to make changes to their algorithm? In the adpocalypse, it was clear. Money talks and advertisers are controlling the purse strings. However, government regulation can be another mechanism to propel YouTube towards meaningful revisions to both its content policies and its algorithm design. After all, YouTube is a harsh place for women, and if the platform hasn't done enough to correct this by now, perhaps government intervention could help in making the internet and YouTube safer for women's voices. In 2022, the Center for Countering Digital Hate produced a document for the White House to address online harassment and abuse against women. Here's what they suggested in their report.
Our experience with the status quo is shown in our series of Failure to Act research, where reports of illegal content and other forms of harmful content are made to big tech using their own reporting tools with minimal response. The status quo is simply enabling big tech to gaslight women who effectively become re-victimized by having no response to their complaints about abuse and harassment.
Many have been clamoring about the need for government regulation of YouTube to deal with cyber harassment of women on the platform. Removing this daily fight against misogyny from the various struggles that female creators have to face could be a first step in countering the stark gender divide that we've been investigating. So whether the change is driven by government regulation or by advertisers demanding that YouTube cleans up its act, it's clear that we need to have meaningful intervention of some kind that makes YouTube a fairer and safer place for female viewers and creators alike. At times during this series, we've discussed ways in which the issues we see on YouTube are reflective of wider misogyny in our society at large. Women experience a pay gap across pretty much all industries, so of course the rates they receive on YouTube will be lower than men. Women receive more criticism on and offline, so why should YouTube be any different? The biases in the algorithm simply reflect our own internalized gendered thinking, which is shaped by the ongoing gender disparities in the world around us. And for me, that lets YouTube off the hook. Carrie Goldberg says something very similar in the documentary The YouTube Effect. Goldberg is a New York-based victims' rights attorney. She has spent years taking tech firms to court over an array of abuses on their platforms. These have ranged from stalking and harassment to revenge porn and online privacy violations.
Yeah, I hear that a lot where people are like, listen, the it's just a mirror on society. And so why should we be focusing on fixing the internet instead of on society? And the thing is that, in my opinion, in my experience as a lawyer for people who've been f***ed over by tech, is that it is itself the weapon. The internet has created this like really convenient mechanism to harm. And the platforms are making just like they're minting money off of it. And so I don't agree that it is just a reflection of society. It's changed society.
YouTube might have been shaped by our society, but now we are at a place 19 years after YouTube was founded, 18 years after Susan Wojcicki convinced the biggest tech company in the world to purchase the platform, and 14 years after it won a Peabody for the democratic promise it offered for people across the world. It's time for YouTube to embrace its responsibility in not only reflecting society, but actually shaping it. Tweaking the algorithm to ensure better gender equality on the platform is no small task. Neither is enforcing stricter policies against misogynistic content and comments. However, committing to making these changes will allow YouTube to lead the way in creating a fairer and more equitable platform in line with the promise of its early beginnings. Since its inception, YouTube has done incredible things. It has built careers and impacted culture and created a whole new entertainment economy. But the platform also has huge potential that it has yet to realize regarding democracy, safety, and of course, gender equality. It's time for YouTube to embrace that potential and remake itself as a platform where creators from all genders can rise to the very top. This podcast was produced by me, Shoshana Eilon, and Aviva Matan-Zimmerman, with additional production, editing, and sound design support by Tracy Levy, Tom Alush, and Emma Flanders. Many thanks to David Tintner and the entire Thought Leaders team for all their help in making this series.